Alaikum and welcome to this very special British Pakistan Foundation webinar series where we look at everything to do with women empowerment. Especially today, we're covering women and leadership. What are the barriers? What are the accomplishments? And we've got some phenomenal women with us today. So let me start. We have Hira Ali. Now, where shall I begin with Hira? She seems like she's done everything. She's an inspiring leadership trainer and career coach and an acclaimed writer and speaker. Hira Ali has been committed to helping others achieve their inherent potential throughout her award-winning career, and that's probably a multi-award-winning career. Hira is also a successful entrepreneur who has launched several businesses to support her mission. Her work has been featured in Forbes, Telegraph, the BBC, Harper's Bazaar, Huffman Post, and on The Entrepreneur, among hundreds of other print, radio, and television outlets, and has earned Hira several prestigious honors and awards. Hira is passionate about empowering women, especially those from ethnic minority communities, closing the gender gap and advocating diversity and inclusion in the workforce. I think that is incredible, and I wish I could write as well as that. The next person we have is, you're probably all familiar with this lady, Ebba Qureshi. Now, Ebba is the founder and CEO of FemGames. FemGames really motivates women across the globe to get up and be active, and they have something very special that they launched last year, which is called the Walkathon. And I know we all did millions of steps during lockdown, and this is the perfect way not only to get out in nature, but really support our mental health and well-being. Ebba is an accomplished campaigner with qualified experience of working in public relations. She works in the communication sector as well as developing high-profile events. An active entrepreneur striving to empower women entrepreneurs across Pakistan. She is the founder and CEO of FemGames, as we mentioned, where she aims to implement structured PE lessons for girls' schools across Pakistan. Currently, Ebba is co-founding and opening up co-working spaces in Pakistan, which will also focus on empowering entrepreneurs and mompreneurs. How wonderful. Now, lastly, and by no means least, is Zara Mahmood, the Secretary General of the MCB, the Muslim Council of Britain. Recently elected, Zara is the first female and youngest and Scottish person to take the role, and that makes her make history 3 times, is that right? The MCB is the largest and most diverse Muslim umbrella body in the UK, established over 24 years ago. With a background in human rights law, Zara's strategic priorities include COVID response with a focus on mental health and economic recovery, diversity and inclusion, women, young people, and underrepresented groups. Finally, Zara is working to see an increase in the role of Muslims in public and political participation and social mobility. She champions young people in leadership and a society in which our institutions have a space for us all. Wow, welcome all 3 of you, and thank you so much for your valuable time. Now, let's get on with the first question, and this is a nice, easy one. I want to know about each one of your journeys, but more importantly, I want to know about the barrier that you faced to become the leaders that you are today, just because barriers always inspire people. So how did you overcome those barriers and become the woman that you are today? So let's start with Zara.
Well, assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much to the British Pakistani Foundation for having me here today amongst these incredible women. I think, yeah, this is probably a very pertinent question, being a first. People always think about, well, how did you actually get through the door? How did they let you in? I think for me, there was probably a couple of things to think about on this journey. The first one was probably my own self-belief that I could actually do it. And I think that's always the first barrier, which is, you know, staring right at you, yourself. And so I think the first thing was actually just believing that I could do it against the odds, being the youngest and the first female. And I think the second thing was actually thinking about why I should do it, you know, what made me right for it. And it was less about me, but more about the vision and the difference that I can make and believing in myself to do that. I think the second thing that's really important is the people around you and their support and encouragement. And I don't think any of us really does this alone. I think you need you know, and sometimes it's not necessarily people that are that close to you, but just the you know, for in my case, it was our members, our affiliates, community members, friends and family, who all had that belief in me and my potential. And I think for me, I just kind of thought, well, I don't need to think I'm going to have to carry this alone. There's going to be people with me and my team. And then I think the final thing is always comes back to, you know, your faith and this idea that actually you're not here to fix the problem. You're just here to help in a little way in the gift that you have. And I think all of us have this gift. And I think that, you know, when you finally just appreciate that actually you're just part of it, that's probably what gives you that final bit of confidence that you're not going to do it alone, and that there is this, you know, this divine path, you know, this something, God is there to help you along the way, and he'll facilitate that path. All you have to do is be brave and take the step forward. And I think the key challenges were, you know, believing in myself, that imposter syndrome, you know, that self-doubt, but also in some ways what you perceive to be problems that are maybe not problems, and that is judgment, perception, in my case ageism, this idea that I was too young. But if you can actually, if you can look past them and think through them and just think about what you want to achieve more, and then it's not just about you, it's about the thing that's bigger than you, then I think hopefully, you know, that is a good way of going about it. But yeah, that's just a little bit of insight on my journey.
Now, just one thing, Zara, on that is, how did you convince the MCB that you need to be their next Secretary General? Because that must have been a barrier and a half to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to put it like that, I mean, this was the first ever MCB election in which we did a live Islam channel hustings, you know. It wasn't like your ordinary election process. There was a lot of attention and a lot of critical questions to both, you know, I was running against a very prominent candidate and in his own right, you know, excellent too. I think people had seen my track record in the 2.5 years that I had been on the exec, so I wasn't a stranger to the organisation. But I used to be the first person to get to the meetings from Glasgow to London on a 4 a.m. train before they'd even put the shutters up. You know, my passion was always really strong for the work, and I didn't see geography as a boundary. And the other thing I always had was enthusiasm. I didn't care if it was a forward-facing role or a background role. I was just happy to do it. And I think people saw that and they liked the direction. And I think also this idea that like it is about the future now. And I think a lot of people have daughters and nieces and granddaughters, and they want those young girls to have role models and to feel that there's a place for them. And I think for a lot of them, alhamdulillah, you know, was something like that, you know. But I think, you know, ability first. And my predecessor he was always facilitating opportunities for me to do things, you know. And so I think you need that. You need allies, you need people who create the space for you, but you also need, I think, that recognition that, well, where do we want to go as an organization? What's our direction of travel? And it's probably about time. So I think that's my analysis, but who knows?
Fantastic. Now I move on to Ebba. Ebba, what was your biggest barrier to get to where you are today, to become the leader that you are today? And how did you overcome that?
You know, I really like the word that you're, you know, leadership for sort of, you know, I don't consider myself a leader. I consider myself as someone who likes to advocate for, you know, for certain initiatives or messages that I believe in passionately. But I believe that where I am today has not been the easiest of journeys, but it's also not been so bad. I think that it's time that we motivate the younger generation, the younger female community, to say that actually, hey, it's not as bad as it sounds. Because even if they look up on Google, for example, if you look up leadership, women in leadership or things like that, the first thing that comes up is the barriers. And that's almost off-putting for a young lady or a young girl who wants to lead in whatever she does, and you know, and wants to advocate for things, or wants to go into business and wants to be you know, at C-suite level or whatever it is. So I think that there are some barriers, whether you're a male or a female, there will always be barriers. But for us in particular, for females in particular, there's always been a gender bias, which is now, because we're talking about it so much, we're here talking about it today, that we're actually overcoming some of these barriers. So I would say that for me personally, I found that because of I've done so much work. So the industry that I found the hardest to lead in would be the media and the sports industry, because they were heavily male dominated. We were surrounded by, you know, male at directorial level, at C-suite level, not many females there. And if females were there, they were almost there to pull your leg. They weren't actually there to help you up. So this was when I started. This was like early 2000s. Things have changed now. We are in a much better place. We are all helping each other. We're empowering each other. And I find that the hardest part for me was to overcome that male dominant kind of industry that I was, and then actually look for opportunities. So that's one other thing that we need to address, that there aren't that many opportunities for women to grab those leadership roles. You see, how many times are, you know, recently I've been very, very pleasantly surprised to see when there have been some job descriptions that I've come across, and they've said looking for a diverse, you know, a diverse person with an ethnic background, or we would love to have some female, you know, CVs come forward. And I never used to see that before. It was always a very kind of a male structured job description, almost like they had this man in mind in that job description, and you were trying to really, you know, trying to put yourself in there and fit yourself in there. So I think, you know, things are getting better. The hardest part for me, you know, was the opportunity, was to grab that opportunity if it had it been there. I was very lucky that I was able to, with the support of my family, which I think my husband, my mum, my dad, everyone around me, was the biggest blessing for me to be where I am today. I couldn't have done it without them, seriously. With 3 children, you know, I've only just sort of advanced in my career after I got married and had children, because, you know, we all have kind of, you know, I decided to take a break when I got married. So I mean, you know, I think that there are many opportunities out there. We should be talking about the positives and not just the barriers. But remember, we're here to take over the barriers. We've done that. We've opened up a pathway, for example. We need to, you know, now encourage other girls to come forward.
Fantastic. Now, Hira, what barriers have you faced? Because you've got your fingers in quite a lot of pies. So does that mean that you face an awful lot of barriers?
So I think for me, the greatest barrier was moving from country to country. So as you know, I'm originally from Pakistan. That's where I started my career, and I was on a great career trajectory, earning quite a bit before I moved to Dubai. Started from ground zero, built my leadership brand again, started earning quite a bit, then again came to London, started from ground zero. So every time, you know, every time I moved from one country to another, it was challenging building my leadership brand. And as you know, women have been culturally and socially accustomed to not self-promoting. So I often used to face this challenge. Am I self-promoting or am I not self-promoting? And then I quickly realized that, you know, I had no choice. I had to step up and be more visible, because nobody knew me in UK when I moved here 5 years back. I had absolutely zero connection. So I think and of course, when you self-promote, it doesn't have to be in a self-aggrandizing way and in a flippant way. You have to do it carefully, but you need to get out and be visible. That's how you make connections, and that's how you network, and that's how you build your brand. And I think the second barrier was, I'm quite a traditionalist at heart, and at the same time, I fight for causes that are very important to me. So I'm a strong feminist, and I talk about, you know, women empowerment and, you know, rape apologists and rape culture. But at the same time, I obviously come from a country like Pakistan, where I really wanted to stay true to my beliefs and my culture and my values. So I think the space that I work in, the diversity inclusion space that I work in, it was a bit tricky, because I wanted to really, really fight for the things I care about, but do it in a way that others join me. I didn't want to have that isolated concept of feminism, because I knew that being from Pakistan and Dubai, in different countries that I worked in, feminism has to keep in view our cultural and, you know, our faith and our values and everything. So, and the third was, of course, I think it was just sort of imposter syndrome and self-belief. You need to be really resilient, because when you start your business from scratch in 3 different countries, you know, it's not easy. You don't start earning immediately. It takes quite some time, but I'm, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, I'm very lucky again to have a very supportive family, mentors, industry leaders. And I think just internal belief in myself, which has really helped. And of course, faith in Allah, which has really helped me. And like Ebba said, I think, you know, there are barriers there, but I think if we're able to overcome our own internal challenges, I feel that we're able to, you know, address any barriers that we have externally.
That is brilliant advice, actually. Really, really good advice. Because if we're confident in ourselves, then we can take on any barrier. And a barrier doesn't even seem a barrier. So that's great advice. Now, women in leadership has been it's becoming such a big hot topic. Everybody wants to tick that box, don't they? Everybody wants to get on that bandwagon, as we've mentioned. So for example, in October 2019, the percentage of women on FTSE 250 boards increased by 29.6%, with 582 women directors, which sounds great, right? But actually, the overall representation was quite low. So there was only like a third of all women non-executive directors. Yet only 10.3 of them were executive directors. And also you see statistics across the country, such as women account for only 6% of FTSE 100 CEOs and are paid far, far less. So you see these statistics all the time. I'm just speaking the United Kingdom for once, but this is kind of echoed across the globe. What can we do to increase this representation and make sure that there's more women leaders in all of the sectors, not just the FTSE or the private companies or even as entrepreneurs, but in every sector? Because although a lot of people want to talk about women entrepreneurs or women in leadership, the fact is there's still so much work to be done. So I'll come to you, Zara. What do we need to do to make sure that there's more women like you in all sectors being completely represented?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really brilliant question, because it goes back to the root of the issue. And this issue isn't just about, Muslim women or ethnic minority women or diverse women. It's part of a bigger global conversation on women in employment, women in positions, and then, how far we can go in this kind of landscape. And I think it comes back to what Ebba was saying, which is about space, and facilitation of journeys and pathways. What you'll find is, we'll let a couple of women through, and then we'll kind of dictate how they are perceive or behave. It's a power hungry, strong, power suit wearing. So you're going to focus on your career, but we're not going to accommodate for kids, marriage, for marriage and for other, so it's basically a very career kind of pathway, corporate and all the rest of it. Or it's kind of like, well, you do your kids and everything else, but you don't have enough qualifications or experience, or you're on maternity. So if you think about it as a woman, I mean, I've had to consider these same things. If I'm going to go for this opportunity, well, what does it mean so there's a lot of sacrifice on our part, right? From a healthy, balanced, well-being life, right? Because the structures really do suit like a man, someone doesn't have kids, family responsibility, it kind of suits, right? Well, less baggage and more opportunity. So what you're actually talking about is you need that accommodation and space. So you want more women in, but are you really facilitating the best experience and opportunity and development for those women? Are you taking into consideration their family planning and the fact that actually they may want to have kids? Does that mean they're going to lose their job? Or, so I think the reality is still very much true that not too much has changed. I got asked in an interview, so 2 interviews, right? One by a man and one by a woman. And the man said, so what's, isn't it different, a man and a woman in leadership? Like, are women a bit softer? So do you find a bit softer? I'm just thinking, what kind of question in 2021 are you asking me that I have to be like, I'm soft and the man is more powerful in a sort? And then the female journalist, she said to me, do you find that it's like different, being a woman in leadership? So, like you've got all these other things that you have to do, and, like cleaning, all these, it's kind of like both of them were highlighting that because I was a woman, it was looking at my limitations, essentially highlighted my limitations and the differences. Now we accept these because that's kind of the way we have to operate. We've got to juggle lots of things. But if we're talking about increasing representation in leadership, then we need to look at the atmosphere, the environment, and the way that leadership actually impacts the lives of women. How well is there mentorship? Are people really going to be accommodating? And when are we just tokens? Are we just going to be tokenistic in that? So I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I think some places are doing it really well, but you've got to have that allyship from men and other women. I've also been in a leadership role where but like what you said, Ebba, or the women weren't exactly the most supportive either, you know, and you're like, oh my God, right? Because people respond to leadership styles in different ways. So I think we need to create real opportunities that take into consideration the well-being of women, as well as, you know, what makes them successful isn't how strong and how much like men they need to be, but actually embracing all the goodness they can bring to the table too.
That's really good advice. And it's funny you should say that, because when I actually graduated a long time ago and I got my first job, the first question the male manager asked me is, are you thinking of having children? And I didn't know how to answer that question. And then I asked him why he asked me that. And he said, because we're not looking for somebody who's going to be a mother, because it just brings so much baggage to the company. We want to start a family, and I thought, wow, that was a very, very long time ago, and I haven't had that, but it is taking quite a lot of time. What do you think that the issues are that are stopping more women from coming into leadership roles, or what advice would you give to go to organizations to say this is what you need to do to attract more women leaders?
You know, it goes back to what again Zara was saying, and in fact Hira was bringing up as well, that institutional mindsets are the most significant barriers that women have had forever. It's a mindset, whether it's institutional, whether it's cultural. For our South Asian women, it's been a cultural struggle. We've got several other barriers that we have to overcome before we even think about becoming a leader in something. And women I feel that we've been limited to advancement or never actually given an opportunity, like I said before. So I think what I'd like to see is more mentors and more people that we could look up to, more female leaders that we can look up to. We don't talk about many. I follow a whole load on LinkedIn, and I get so much inspiration from them that are global. You know, there's a gentleman called Omar Alvi, I think he is, on LinkedIn, and he shares the most amazing facts about women leaders. We've got one of the first ladies leading the stock market in Pakistan at the moment, who has just become, she's come out at C-level suite, which has never happened before. So, I think that let's celebrate these kind of roles in Pakistan and actually institutionalize them. So let's talk about them in our history books in Pakistan or even here. And, there's a question actually just there, which is very relevant to what we're talking about. It's Gulle Lala, I think her name is. And she says, I live in Pakistan, and even though I work hard, I still don't have enough confidence in myself. I'm just worried that I'm not doing things right to achieve the leadership level I internally want to. Can you advise something? Is it natural for everyone to feel like that? So I'd like to answer that question right now. And Gulle, it's absolutely natural to feel like that. I am not, I may look the most confident person, talking on here and stuff, but I have my own set of anxieties and pressures and things like that before I give a presentation, for example, or before I'm going and, meeting a new client, for example. So this is a very natural process. And this is what we need to talk about to other women, that confidence doesn't, it doesn't always come naturally. You build upon it. There are several things that you can do to build your confidence. And again, one of the main reasons why I'm advocating for this, and that's sport, is to keep yourself active. There is an amazing research that was done, which is basically it's very relevant. 93% of women that are at C-level suite currently have played some form of sport, or currently, have carried on playing some of sport, not an athletic sort of a national level, but actually have started playing tennis, for example, at the age of 8 and have continued to do so throughout their life. And that has really helped them with their leadership. So that also helps you with confidence. So what I would say is find your comfort zone, and see what helps you regain that confidence. And why do you doubt? The self-doubt that Zara was also talking about, very natural for us women, because we've been constantly put down to think about, are you thinking about just yourself here? Are you thinking about your family? Are you thinking about the children? Are you thinking about your mom and dad, your husband, blah, blah? That puts a lot of self-doubt in anyone when when you're about to kind of go on a journey of this, or you're about to take a career. So don't ever fall back on thinking, I don't think I can be good at this. No, you should always believe in yourself. Believe that if you can persevere and you are disciplined, these two things, if you can persevere and are disciplined, you will get what you have dreamed of, or you are, whatever you want to advocate for, or you want to become a leader in something. You just need to believe and go for it, and never let self-doubt, just never let that come in. Can you hear me, Em?
Yeah.
Hello?
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
hear me?
sorry. No, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, sorry. I asked you the same question, Hira.
Yeah, I'll just answer that. So, you know, asking me this question is like opening a Pandora box, because you're asking a woman who has written 2 books on this exact topic. So I have a lot to say on this. I personally believe, I think that women in leadership positions, whether it's in Pakistan, because I've, you know, worked in Pakistan for 26, 27 years, whether it was in Dubai, I worked there for 6 years, whether it's in London, it always comes down to a combination of 2 things. There are internal factors and then there are external factors. Internal challenges are imposter syndrome, am I good enough, self-belief, perfectionism, self-promotion gap, because again, women do not like to step up for opportunities. They do not like to be visible because they believe that they are bragging. So that's a challenge. And then there are these external challenges. Now, a lot of times women in Pakistan, I've seen, most of them have actually conquered the internal challenges. It's the external challenges, which is how to deal with the community and how to deal with lack of support. And I think one question about that is over here by Shabnam, and she says, what do we do about men? So first of all, make this, the men read this, her allies. Sorry for pitching my book, but honestly, this is so true. In organizations, and this is not just in Pakistan, this happens globally, that there is conscious bias, there's unconscious bias. Women are stereotyped into specific roles, they're relegated into certain industries, and people expect women to, you know, that's how they're going to perform all their life. So this requires a lot of work. The institutional, the systemic bias is very much entrenched in our societies. And the way to do it is to individually start working on men. So if you have men in your circle who are not supportive, I think perhaps try and focus on the benefits of how you working would help them, what's in it for them. And honestly, it just, sometimes it comes to it, because a lot of people will not support your work unless they know what's in it for me. So when I talk about male allyship and asking men to support you, I do say, focus on the personal benefits. How will men benefit from supporting you? Will they, you know, it's going to be positive for the economy. It's going to contribute, you know, $12 billion are going to be added to the economy if women are working at an equivalent level as men. Then if you are a person who works with different diverse groups, particularly women, you have that sustainable collaborative advantage. You get freedom from toxic masculinity. You get freedom to be more flexible with parenting. You have a better relationship with your spouse and partner. So it helps everyone, women leaders. And I'm not going to get into a gender war here that women leaders are better or men leaders are better, because I believe both women and men have gender specific strengths, which if can be combined, can make into a really great leader. So I think it all comes down to overcoming both these set of internal challenges at the same time. Internal challenges, overcoming your own internal barriers, developing that self-belief in yourself, putting yourself out there, stepping up for opportunities just like men do. And then also the external challenges, which is unconscious bias and systemic bias, and how do you actually deal with it by having constructive conversations and dialogues and effectively challenging stereotypes.
Fantastic. Now, we don't have that much time left, but I think we've got 15 minutes and we want to get through the questions of our viewers. So the next few questions, I'm going to give you all a task. You have to answer this in a very succinct way. So the next question I'd like to answer either in a word or a sentence is twofold. One is, how can other women support women? Because we've touched upon this, and not all women, especially those in leadership positions, in very high leadership positions, necessarily support women that are climbing up that ladder. Sometimes the ladder's pulled away from you. So how can they support other women? And so my second thing is, if they're not supporting other women, why should they? And you all need to do this either in a word or a sentence. So Ebba, let's go with you first.
Wow. and empower each other, help out each other wherever you can, in whatever little way you can. It will only benefit you in the future, and it will benefit the other person. It's so rewarding to see other women do well in other areas, in your own area as well. I mean, if I could help someone in media or sport or anything very similar to me, I'd be ecstatic to see them. It would be so rewarding to see them do so well and actually achieve what they wanted to do. I think, you know, one word: mentor and empower. Do two things. I think if you can do that, you're in a winning streak.
Fantastic. Now that was a challenge that you accomplished. Well done. Zara, your turn.
I think if we don't change, nothing changes. And if we don't take the path that no one's taken, you know, there's no path. So don't see it as a competition, but see it as I guess just, you know, we're building together for each other. And you know, my mother always says this: be your own benchmark to success. So you don't need to see that other woman as taking your space. She's just making the space bigger. So I think really help us make the space bigger, because if we're pulling each other down, we're making it smaller. So I think that's it. Just, you know, be here. Let's build together, right? And embrace that we all have gifts to share and to work together towards.
It's great mantra. It's a great mantra. Hira, what would you say?
So once, you know, you said one sentence. So the one sentence that I read 2 days ago was, and I think really resonated. And they said that if there is only one shining star in the sky would be very dark. You need a cluster of shining stars for the sky to brighten up. And I think that is such a good example that, you know, you alone being at the top is not going to brighten the sky. You need to pave way for others. And I strongly, as a practicing Muslim, I strongly believe in karma and doing good things and good things coming back to you. So if you help women in your circle, trust me, it comes back to you in so many different ways. It has to me, and I'm sure everybody, like, you know, Zara, Ebba are going to vouch because they have been doing so great in their you know, specific fields, that when you help people, it just comes back to you. So I think just for that very purpose, support each other. And yeah,
I think
fantastic.
Emma, I'd like to say there, it comes from security and insecurity. That's the two things that you've got to get, you know, you've got to get rid of insecurities. If you have, that's when you start empowering other women. If you have any form of insecurity, there will always be something stopping you from empowering that other friend, person, sister, whoever it is, to be the best that they can be. And, you know, insecurities can lead you to many things which are not very, you know, and like, you know, Zara said, don't see it as competition. See it as a rewarding, you know, action. And, you know, and our faith tells us so much about it. So as even as Muslim women, you know, women, there is so much that we can achieve from this just by helping each other out. You know, and I think that if we can get rid of all the insecurities that we have within women, which is a very natural thing, whether it's South Asian, European, whatever, we will be a much better group of community.
And I think don't compare your lows to other people's highs. I mean, if you see somebody being very successful, understand that they went through a lot of challenges before they got to that position. So nobody was born successful. Everybody had the path to follow.
Yeah.
Really good advice. Now, the next question is all about effective communication. Now, there's lots of young women out there whose communication skills maybe are not where they need to be. And this is something that I've personally been involved with. So the charity that I'm involved with, Rising Girl, we piloted our Rise Together Pakistan program, which basically concentrates on the
I can't hear you, Em.
Sorry. I think she is probably asking about communication.
Yeah, I think the connection is...
Yeah.
At university level, and it's the one thing that everybody wanted, and it's the one thing that we have been told by women over there. Can you hear me?
We can, but
not very well. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm asking about. I will just. Oh, fantastic. So it's all about effective communication. What I'll do is you would give, what is the most effective way that young women can communicate and become those leaders? Ebba, if you go first.
Number one, get a better Wi-Fi connection. I think that's the most important one. No, I'm just kidding. I think, you know, I am from a communications and PR background, and I cannot vouch for it enough to say that your communication skills need to be you know, we need to all have good communication skills, which is what makes it effective. Now, you're not born with these, you know, these sort of communication skills, but you have to work on them. It's something that us women are very good at communicating, right? We're very good at talking to each other. We're very good at talking it out, etc. Now, for women, it should be just as easy to develop these skills in order to use them at workspace, for example. And I'm not saying that you should become really confident in communicating, but at least just make it as effective as possible. And if you don't communicate what you need done, for example, if you're working as part of a team, it's very difficult if you're not able to communicate any form of, you know, work that you need done, or work that you need to work with the whole team in a way. So I think communication is an important tool, but yet it's something that you need to learn, is what I'm trying to get at. It's not something that comes at birth to you. It's something, so do not feel that, oh, I'm not a great communicator, therefore I'm not going to take this. Don't let it hinder you. Make sure that you know, take on the I would say the challenge to become and to learn the skill of communicating. And that can also be in a very kind of, you know, it can be in a very humble way. It can be in a, you know, you can communicate. So like, for example, for me, if I put it in very simple terms, for me, I did a lot of public speaking, and I find public speaking quite a lot easier than I did before, but I had to work on it. I had to do a lot of courses. I did a lot of practice. You know, as they say, practice makes progress. Now it's not practice makes perfect anymore, but a lot of practice in debating. So, you know, like I get my daughters to join debating clubs, etc., because I know that as women, we are always told, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not doing this well, so you're put down. And what happens is that knocks your confidence. If you don't have good confidence, you're not going to be able to communicate. So number one, work on your confidence in order to be able to communicate. Find the most effective way of communication. What works for you? It doesn't have to be public speaking. It can be other ways.
Fantastic. Now we don't have very much time, so I'll move over to Hira. Hira, what advice would you give?
I think, and I'm going to state a very unpopular opinion here, but unfortunately, as women, we're supposed to bring likability to the table. So I often advise my coaches and my clients and whoever I train is that you need to work and communicate in a way that is agreeable. So you can speak out your opinions, you can speak out, you can be the only one with your opinion, only one in the room. I often am the only one in the room with an opinion. But the thing is, how you communicate is really important. So your spoken English is not necessarily as important. In due course, it might become important, but how you communicate, the way you're able to present a balanced perspective and take people on board is really, really important. And, you know, Dr. Sue calls it being relentlessly pleasant and fighting for the things you care about in a way that others join you. So taking on board everybody's perspectives and then presenting a viewpoint. And that comes with practice. And I think if you practice, I mean, I was not a public speaker either until 20 years ago. But, you know, I made a personal dare to myself that I'm going to practice, practice, practice. And eventually now, if you tell me to go and address 1,000 people, I'll be like, yes, you know. So that's really important. Practice will give you progress, if not perfection.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Zara, I asked you the same question, but Zara, I'm going to tag on another question, and which is actually works really nicely with effective communication. How do you answer? The question is all to do with social media, because that is a platform where you do communicate, where you can communicate the positive things that you do and the changes that you make in life. However, it's not always perceived in the most positive way. So how do you handle that and also be that effective communicator?
Yeah, no, excellent. I mean, I think the ladies have done a great job. For me, the key thing is always, what is my message? You know, what am I trying to communicate? So you need to know what you want to communicate. And then the other thing that I would say is the easiest step is ask questions. That's the best way to learn how to communicate, is ask questions and invite questions. And just imagine you're having a conversation with people, to the world. And that brings me to social media. I mean, I think social media is one of the toughest spaces. I find it a little bit scary. And people thrive, they have businesses, they have followers. It can become a bit obsessive, you can overshare, and your self-esteem can be linked to those likes and shares. So we know the cycle, and we know that it only shows you the highlight reel. I would say that you've got to have a line. There's a private life and a public life. And even if you share your private life in social media, there needs to be a wall where people can't see. There needs to be a layer that's just you. And that authentic layer is what you always have to go back to. And I would say that, you know, have a goal with your social media. Maybe your Facebook is for friends and family or whatever it is. Have some goals, right? Simple things, little terms and conditions with yourself. But just remember that, you know, there needs to be breaks in your life where you're not speaking to people, you're not posting, you're not, you know, going through. And because, you know, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he said, you're on the religion of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You become the people that you spend the most time with. So think about, who do you WhatsApp the most? Who are you checking out the most on social media? What are you spending your time doing? And that influences you. You won't believe how it influences you. So I would say just be clever. You know, we all engage with social media. We're all part of it. But remember to stay true to yourself. And the last thing I'll say is, the thing that I always go back to is, remember your own voice. It's so easy to be influenced by everybody else around you. And because, you know, there's strong people in our lives, we're strong characters too, but we all have, you know, we're all human at the end of the day. Listen, right? Influence. So just be careful to never lose sight of your own voice.
Fantastic. Now we want to get to the questions as well. I know Sadia has her hand up, so I'm going to say in 10 seconds each, could you just answer this last question? How do you counteract the positive from the negative and not allow that to distract your leadership journey? Now, Zara, we've just asked you that question, a question, but I'm going to start with you again, but I'm going to time you this time. So you've literally got 10 seconds to answer that.
I'm going to do it forward. Don't lose sight of the goal.
Fantastic.
That's it.
Ebba, how would you answer that question?
Persevere, and have self-belief.
Brilliant. And Hira, how would you answer that question?
The thoughts you feed to your mind are very important. So always feed positive thoughts so you're able to work positively in life.
Brilliant. Now let's go to the questions. I know we don't have very much time. Could we get Sadia on to ask her question, please? While that is happening, let me ask some questions. So we have a question here from Shabnam Ali. What about the internal factors of our community? For women to progress, they need complete backing and support from men. Fathers, husbands need to be part of our cause. How can we make some of these changes within our community? Men often still want women to carry out traditional roles in the home, which can hinder career development. That is a really good question. Now, because we don't have very much time, I'd like all of you to answer it, but in a very succinct way. So here, so start with you.
So I did answer this partially, and I also believe that if this is something happening in Pakistan, in our culture, I think focus and show to men in your life about, you know, show them powerful Muslim women in the past, you know, Hazrat Khatija, Hazrat Amna, they're all very powerful women in their own right who went out, who worked. So I think if culture, and then, you know, focus on the personal benefits of why allyship is important and why women leadership is important, men will equally benefit if women progress.
Hira and Ebba, do you have anything to add to what, sorry, Hira, Ebba and Zara, do you have anything to add to what Hira has just said?
I mean, I think it's going to take time. I think we just have to accept it's going to take time. It's going to take generations. It's going to take trust. It's going to take a change in thinking. I think we have to accept that not everyone is going to have the same ideas that we do of progress and moving forward. And a lot of that comes from insecurity and fear. And so really what we're trying to do is get them to trust that we're going to be okay. So it doesn't always come from a bad place. Sometimes it comes from an overprotective place. Sometimes it is a bad place too, but I think it's going to take time, and maybe we have to be a bit brave in that journey and take a couple of steps forward and then a few back, and then test the water out a little.
I think as Hira said, involve the men in your life, and you know, whether it's your husband or your father or your brother, involve them in those decisions that you're making, and let them know what you're thinking about, how you'd like to move forward, how you'd like that support. I certainly could not have been where I am without my husband.
Me too.
You know, absolutely been a champion in actually encouraging me to pick myself up and carry on where I felt that I can't carry on, I can't do this anymore. There's too many, you know, I've got so much going on, etc. But so had it not been for him, had it not been for my dad, who showed me the path of professionalism in entrepreneurship, for example, that, you know, never said to me, oh, you're a girl, you don't need to do this. I was allowed to go up to, you know, go to university and finish off the degree what I wanted in marketing and PR, as always. And I remember my extended family, in fact, one of my uncles saying to me, why are you going into media and marketing? What's that going to achieve? Why did you not do, you know, women do, you know, they become either going to medicine and then they have to get married and they have to have children anyway. So that actually became a bit of a catalyst for me, because that was like, no, I'm really going to, you know, my dad has given me that support. So I'm going to show them that actually we can do other degrees and make a career out of it.
Fantastic. Now I'm going to ask these last two questions because we are actually out of time. Sophie Arga asks, how do you deal with gaps in your CV due to taking time off for family, marriage, and employers' expectations, as it is often difficult trying to get back into work, especially due to the competition? Also, how do you identify the right time to take a break in your career? And Nishad Azmat is basically asking, are there any Pakistani female networking groups, mentoring or social groups in the UK? And there is an anonymous one. I missed is being, oh, okay, yes, this is being recorded for you to watch afterwards. So what I'm going to do is, Ebba, if you'd like to take any of those questions, and then I'll move it on to Hira and Zara, and then bring this to a close.
Right, okay, I would like to just with regards to the lady asking about the gaps in the CV, I had the same dilemma, because when I got married, I went off traveling with my husband and I wasn't working, and then it was a good 3 to 4 years there that I hadn't actually worked, and then that's when I set up as a self-employed person, and I thought, right, I can't do this because I'm going to be really behind. I felt like I had missed out on a lifetime of work, and so what I would say is, in order to avoid those gaps, is volunteer as much as you can when you get time, because that's actually very flexible. Volunteer in you know, industries or things, or charity even, which actually keeps you going, because it's really important to get your mind stimulated, but also that you are actually networking at the same time, and you're in that kind of frame of work where you've got discipline, you're working, and you've got some reward, you know, at the end of it. So always I think carry on volunteering when you don't have time to, you know, give out your 100% because you're having babies or you're gone off. And also read up in if you're in an industry like I am in PR, or, you know, when social media turned digital, like when it became totally digital, I had to up my game. I had to learn the digitalization in PR, and I did that in my own sweet time. I did some courses at home, and there's so much you can do online now. So just, you know, and those are not gaps. You can actually then add them in your CV and say, right, when I was actually, you know, having a baby, I didn't just sit at home. This is what I did. I was volunteering for and this is a position I took, and that's what I did.
Fantastic. Hira, do you have any advice to add on to that?
So I think very similar to what Ebba did, volunteering, because I also had a sort of a break in my resume, but I was doing freelance assignments. What I would say is, when I talk about building your leadership brand, is focus on the future and focus on the skills which you bring to the organization. So if you are applying for a job, tell them what you will bring to the table, rather than focusing on the past, which of course everybody knows there was a break, which is absolutely fine. And do tell them that because sometimes it's all about transferable skills. It's not even the work you did in the 3 years. So if you have, and being a mom teaches you a lot of skills, from multitasking to time management, and which we don't take into account. So I think focus on that, and also build a personal board of directors. I think every woman should have a personal board of directors with mentors, sponsors, coaches, and a great network, so that you get connected to the right opportunities. And now, luckily, organizations are really welcoming women even after career breaks. So that's a positive change which society has seen.
Fantastic. And Zara, I'd like to leave with you with the final words and advice to all those young women.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of the final question, which is, when do you take a break? You know, because I think we're now moving into a bit of a well-being, more of a well-being focus. I think, look, there will come a point in your career where you've had enough, you're burnt out, or actually your career doesn't really represent your values anymore. I certainly had this moment where I was just like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. That's when you know something has to change. And when you're just feeling like you can't wait for the day to end, when you're feeling like you don't feel like you're growing, you're progressing, you're moving forward. So I think it's really important to have that self-reflection and review, and do that feedback with your inner circle and the people around you, and to say, you know, what do you think? Do a bit of consultation. But I think all of us have stepping stones in life. And I think from all of the ladies here, I guess what we've all said is that it's going to be hard. It is an uphill, but certainly a great view comes with a great climb. And it's not about doing it yourself. I think we're all trying to carry each other, or create a path so others can follow. And I think certainly, you know, the exciting thing about all of this is the potential for change that we can make, and don't see the bump in the road or a bad day is a bad life. You know, I think it's all about, you know, there's so many times where I'm like, oh my God, this was such a long day, a stressful day, a crazy day, a day where you didn't imagine where you were going to be. But it's the makings of who you are. And I think all of this is making you into the person you need to be to do something even more amazing. And I think in my role, it's what a blessing, what an amana, what a responsibility. And certainly I think it's an opportunity to create some good change. So inshallah, you know, I just think today's been an incredible discussion. And if you're feeling not so sure right now, or you're not feeling so great about yourself, start there. You know, it's not the career, it's you. You got to feel great about you. You got to like yourself and believe in yourself. And we're all here waiting to help you out. So inshallah, you know, the network is there. Just take advantage of it. And I think, you know, it's been an incredible session. Just so amazing to hear from everybody today.
Fantastic. Well, that brings the session to a close. I want to say a few things. One is there is a survey for everyone to fill in. There's a poll. Please do give us your views and opinions. You can also email the British Pakistan Foundation and subscribe and become a member. That is, somebody's asked a question, how can they be part of the group? You can be part of their group just by subscribing. Please do tag them and talk about this further, because this is a very, very important subject. And Zara, Hira, myself and Ebba are all on Twitter as our British Pakistan Foundation. So let's continue the discussion, keep it positive and keep it kind. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you to British Pakistan Foundation. And inshallah, I'm sure we will all meet again.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
All
Goodbye.
right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.